Welcome back to the Witch's Way podcast. I'm Kat.
And I'm Jamie. And tonight's topic will help you not waste time this New Year's season. Okay, although societies have had the tradition of making New Year's resolutions for thousands of years, like, did you know that? Thousands of years.
I didn't really know that.
I didn't know that either.
You did the research for
I had to do
part.
a little bit of research.
Yeah.
So, there's been this tradition of making New Year's resolutions for thousands of years. But one huge thing changed during the Roman rule, and that fucked everybody up. And that's why we got to talk about this now, 2,000 years later.
Okay, so let's talk about the origins of New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
So 4,000 years ago, the Babylonians had a festival called acheie. That's spelled Akitu.
Yeah.
And it was a spring festival for the new year. It focused on three things: returning borrowed items, paying off debts, and staying in good favor with the gods.
Which, of course, I love that. Staying in good favor with the gods. This was a time when we were a polytheistic culture around the world. There wasn't a singular god in charge of anybody. It was like you had a god for everything. They did different things. So you wanted to be...
The old gods and the new gods,
The old gods and the new. Yeah, so this is where it started from. I mean, so that's the earliest record of New Year's resolutions, right? This is what people did for New Year's.
But it was spring. It happened in the spring. That was when
the New
Year's.
Oh, she's jumping ahead. Okay. So then, all right, fast forward several thousand years, and we had, the Roman rule in 46 BCE. And this is when Caesar, like Julius Caesar, the ruler, introduced the Julian calendar. Okay, so we went from different pantheons also. So we've switched pantheons, and I'm not listing them all, but Greek, Roman, whatever. But now Julius Caesar wanted to redo the calendar to align with different gods and for a different time of the year. And so he decided he would move January 1, or our new year, to honor the god Janus, which I don't actually know that god, but it's a two-faced god of beginning, ending, and transitions. So he didn't move the concept. The concept went with him, right? Mm-hmm. Like he took that renewal thing that, what comes around goes around, the death and rebirth, but he moved it in the agricultural year.
Well, yeah, because he's honoring the two-faced god of beginnings, endings, and transitions. So that is literally how we define our new year. Like we mark it as the beginning point of a year, and December 31st as the ending point of a year.
Yeah,
and then it's always a transition. But so fast forward again to the early 20th century, and society became more secular. Resolutions shifted away from spiritual growth and focused on personal improvement like health, wealth, and habits. Now, we're probably all starting to recognize how we currently see the new year, right?
Yeah.
What happened after the post-war baby boom?
Oh gosh. So the idea of reinventing yourself. So it just got more and more popular to have this, like, January 1, new you. And I had to look this up because I'm like, where the fuck did this originate? Who decided this was going to be a thing? Well, that idea of reinventing yourself gained so much momentum during the self-improvement craze in the post-war America. This era saw resolutions tied to consumerism. Boom. That is where spirituality goes to die, is in consumerism. So this is gym memberships, this is the diets and the self-help products and make your life easier and get a fucking microwave and why work harder, work smarter. And now we're trying to reinvent ourselves. So
that brings us to kind of the present, which most of us on this call, or at least remember the 70s or know
70s
the 70s
to present. Yeah.
So 70s to the present. Resolutions became a pop culture phenomenon. Isn't that where spirituality goes to die?
Fuck. It could be revived, though. Okay. I feel like it could be.
I feel like these two things, consumerism and then pop culture, is they're so far removed from spirituality.
It is.
But anyway, the pop culture thing was often linked to fitness, weight loss, and productivity. Advertisers and industries capitalized on this trend. Hello. Especially in January, marketing products and services to align with these common resolutions.
So what they did was they saw what people thought they were supposed to be doing for the New Year's resolutions, and they're like, so now this is when we're going to do all the gyms do this thing, all the sales of the new fitness stuff come out. If you're going to launch a product, everybody knows that this is when right now in our society, people are thinking about, oh, when's the best time to start a new weight loss plan? January 1, new gym membership, all this shit. And that is why we're here to tell you that is a waste of fucking time, because it's not the right season for it. And yet nobody has thought about that. Yeah.
The simplest way to remember this is to know that our new year used to be aligned with our agricultural cycle, our food, our livestock, and the world around us. We were completely aligned with nature's cycle versus an emperor's ideals. Maybe our body still knows it's not the right time. Let's look at the science behind it.
Yeah, because why do so many New Year's resolutions tend to fail?
Why do they? I mean, there's.
Oh, how many have you ever kept? How many have you ever kept?
None.
None. Same, none.
I kept them for a few weeks. 6
months,
weeks maybe.
yeah.
Months.
Even
but
months.
No, they never stuck.
No.
They never stuck. And I think the worst thing about making New Year's resolutions and then not sticking through them is you feel like a failure. Or
you feel
I feel
guilty.
Like
yeah.
I feel guilty. I feel like a failure. It's like you start to feel hopeless. I got finally to the point where I'm like, I'm not going to make them because I never keep them. So what the hell?
Yeah, but then this is where the science behind the resolutions and like the failure and all the things that happen, because what's going on in our social lives when this time of year comes up, everybody's like, did you make your New Year's resolution? Oh, what are you doing this year? And so there's this pressure, right? Society pressures us to set these lofty fucking goals that actually lack a strong belief foundation. Like, we just don't believe them enough. We're like, this is what we're supposed to be doing because everybody's doing it.
We're doing it because we feel like we're pressured. First of all, we're probably advertised. We're marketed to.
Pressured. Yeah, it's what everybody's doing.
Everybody's doing it.
Yeah. So I think when you see that we make unrealistic expectations of ourselves, because the thing that's actually wanting us to do this is an external force. It's kind of it's popular, that's what's going on in the world right now. So you're like, oh man, I guess I should jump on this bandwagon. Like, this is what everybody does this time of year, might as well. So it's an outside expectation from somebody else's idea of what we should become or be doing. And that's another reason why they fail, right? Because our hearts aren't in it. Our belief system isn't there. Our desire is not as much there. It's external. So if we're doing it to please the masses. We're doing it to have something to talk about.
Which means we're relying on our willpower.
Yeah.
And that is a limited resource. And motivation wanes quickly after January because the social influence and pressure dies off.
People stop talking about it.
Everybody gets back to their lives. So ask yourself, when do you feel the most energetic? Spring? Summer? Months with more sun energy and more fire energy tend to use for transformation. Did I say that right? It's about, I guess when you think about spring and summer and that there's more fire energy there's more sun energy, this is what lends to transformation. I probably had a typo in that. Yeah. This is lending to our transformation. So when do you not feel, let's ask the opposite question of that, or maybe you do, but when do you not feel like doing anything? How about when it's fucking cold and shitty outside? I lived in Kansas City for 30 years, and before Christmas, all the trees were bare, all the grass was brown. We might have had a couple of snowstorms or ice storms, and the sky was gray, and it stayed that way for months. It stayed that way until spring. I remember the overcast. And who wants, I mean, I can remember driving to work every day, and just the gloom. It was like a gloomy thing, because the sky was gray, the trees were bare, they looked like sticks sticking, and there was a lot of trees. There was no color in the world. There was no color, and it was just so, and all I wanted to do is go home and make soup, and curl up with a book by the fireplace, or but definitely wasn't thinking about any kind of transformation. You didn't feel motivated to go out and start something new. First of all, who's getting up at the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning when it's 20 below zero? It's the coldest hours of the day, is the early morning. It's so cold, and you gotta if you don't have a garage, which I didn't, you gotta scrape the ice off your car, you gotta warm your car up, you potentially gotta shovel snow. I'm glad I live in Florida. Yeah. But anyway, the point of it is like, it's the dark time of the year, and which is when January falls for us, in the darkest, coldest, almost one of the coldest times of the year. Yeah, because remember, so Yule, I don't know if people know this or recognize it in this way, but Yule, December 21st or 22nd or 20th, is the actual start of winter. So I know how we think we're in winter in November and early December, but we're not yet. Yeah. We're actually not. Winter actually starts
towards the end of December and carries on for 3 months as a season.
Yeah.
So in whose world does starting things align with when everything is dead, dying, and hibernating? Like,
Yeah,
it's
not
crazy.
to mention post-holiday exhaustion and the
Yeah.
challenge of starting fresh in the darkest, coldest time of the year.
Yeah.
So
You have all these odds against you. So this is
Yeah.
like the science behind why resolutions really fail.
It's like, once you think about that, you realize why you've never been able to keep a New Year's resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's never. Somebody out there probably has.
Somebody has
But
to,
boy,
right?
It took some willpower.
I think it had to be more than just willpower, because that's like forcing yourself up. It needed to be goals that you set for yourself that you want so badly that the sacrifices that you're making are worth it. And for most of us, we're already doing so much. Who wants to take on a whole nother huge project that is more exhausting than our normal life?
Well,
it's like getting
also,
a second job.
Yeah, it's also like oh gosh, I just lost my whole thought when you were saying that.
Well, it goes back to sort of the advertisements and the people talking about. They want us to have these really big, like,
yeah, transformative goals.
yeah, huge.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic expectations. Set unrealistic goals.
Yeah.
Oh, go bigger, do more. Don't say you'll lose 5 pounds. Say you'll lose 30 pounds.
Yeah.
Just fucking making it harder on us. So what? That it feels bigger, so we want to get it more. Like, I don't know where people think that connects, but it doesn't. I think losing 5 pounds and just being like, I'm good. I did that in 1 month. I'm good. Look, I achieved. I started in January and ended in January.
So the hurdles, they're stacked against us. They really, really are. For
They
us
are.
to be making any kind of New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
But
So-
let's talk about why winter. We've touched on this a little bit, but let's talk
Yeah.
about why winter doesn't support growth. Because we're in the dark. The earth is hibernating.
This is what witches realize, and that not a lot of other people, because they're not aligned with the seasons and what's happening with the earth and how that affects our rhythms for our own growth, our health, our outlook on stuff. Like, the seasons truly do affect us.
Mm-hmm.
So of nature's rhythms, winter is a season of rest and reflection and hibernation, not action and growth. What the fuck? Yeah, somebody got that all wrong. There's a cultural mismatch where modern society's like, new year, new you. Oh, okay. Well, what if I want to sleep for the first 3 of the new me? Like, 3 months of sleeping for me. That's how I'm starting. The mindset of that clashes with what we have going on for the seasonal cycle. Mm-hmm. They're like, the bear is hibernating and they want to go in there and poke the bear. No, get up, go catch fish, go do something. You need to be a new you, you. Can you imagine?
Energetically misaligned.
Energetically misaligned, for sure.
Energetically misaligned. Winter is
All because
not
of
the time
fucking
for,
Caesar.
Starting, feeling forced to start these physical transformative projects when you should be
Resting and reflecting.
Resting and reflecting and doing inner work.
This
That's
is more
the
of a
time.
planning. Yeah. I
Or
would
planning.
say winter is a planning time, because you should have that rest. You should have time to sit and think and look at what you're going to do over the next 9 months once winter's over. Like, make a good plan. Gather your resources. Do research on the things that you really are going to need for your new project. But there's so much time that you need to... planning, what is it? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Give yourself more of that planning time. Winter for me is that planning time. That is, although Florida doesn't have a true winter, but there's a lot of stuff that I have to start indoors, for plants, and I have to plan that out. So I know that I don't want them to be half grown and they're not ready to go in the ground yet, because then that's just more transferring into new pots, bigger pots. So there's this planning thing, if we're looking at agriculturally, why this is significant, that flows into our own lives as far as, rest, recovery, reflection, planning. That's the winter time.
It's a good time for shadow work for all of you. which is
Definitely.
okay, because you got lots of long days and quiet times and...
It's not long days. It's shorter days.
Short days. Long
nights.
Long nights.
Yeah.
Is what I meant. Lots of
dark.
Dark.
Candlelight.
Lots of dark candlelight.
Sitting by
cozy
candlelight.
sweaters, cups of tea and journals.
Yeah. That's why it's energetically misaligned, because it's forced. They don't match. Somebody needs to call all the advertisers and tell them that they're fucking up.
I mean, seriously.
It's a fad, though. That's why it's such a fad, because it truly doesn't align with what we need to be doing. what our souls need to go through that. Yeah. So now we understand really why winter isn't the best time for the bold new beginnings. Let's explore what we can do instead to set ourselves up for future success.
We can start by aligning our goals with seasonal energies.
Yeah.
That's something we talk about a lot in witchcraft.
I think that's the witchcraft way.
It is.
It
really is the witchcraft way.
To align yourself with the cycles of the earth so that you give yourself that same allowance to have a rest, to plan and to grow small and then get bigger, go full, then harvest what you've grown and then start over again, with anything that we do in our lives. So I think that using wintertime for reflection is the most helpful. Like, all the big shit is out of the way. Okay, so we had all the big holiday flush. Like, you've done all these things. You've been to parties. Now, at the new year, because everybody else is going to be off at the gym and doing whatever, you can be at home and you can be reflecting on what truly matters to you and what you want to grow for the coming year. And I don't think that should be done in a day. That's another thing where it's like the January 1, make a resolution. You need time to plan and sit and think with what's going to happen, what you want to bring in.
We're always in such a rush in our society anymore. Like, everything's like, hurry up.
Pressure, yeah.
And it puts pressure on us all to get things done in a short amount of time. And for something like this, where we're really trying to take advantage of the time of the year, the quiet time of the year, we have the 3 months. Let's take the 3 months.
Let's use it. Yeah.
Like the earth takes 3 months to rejuvenate. Well, even though everything is dead, and when I think about Kansas City and everything's dead and it's gray, there's actually stuff going on underneath the earth.
There's life there.
There is stuff happening.
Yep.
And we should honor ourselves and allow our own selves, our own spirits to connect with that. Just as
the earth rests, we're invited to rest and reflect on what truly matters to us. Like, the earth needs it, so do we.
So do we.
We are of the earth.
And we don't give ourselves that. I feel like we get pressured a lot from society to go constantly. And so we forget, society has forgotten that we need time, we need downtime.
Yeah, we need rest.
Stress the fuck out.
Yeah. That's burnout. I mean, that's totally what happens. Yeah. The practical tools for reflection, too, are always like journaling. And I think that that's something that does come with New Year's stuff. I do see a lot of good journaling prompts or journals that come out, planning tools. That is something that I would, move towards rather than buying memberships. Planning tools, making something that feels authentic for you, something you love to use. My thing is, when I have journals, I want them to be fucking pretty and artsy, and so like half of my time is spent writing shit down, but the other half is spent doodling and putting my washi tape on and stickers, and then drawing some little moons and stars and whatever on those pages too, because that's what makes me feel good. That's part of my process. And I want the time for that, because maybe I'm not currently painting or putting anything together, but if I'm journaling, I'm still being artsy, and that's like therapy for me. Yeah. I think with good journal prompts, you can pick situations out, hard ones, easy ones. What worked? What didn't work? What brought you joy? What drained you? And when you start reflecting on your connections with people and how those situations went, this is where we really get into personal growth. The more that you understand yourself, the better that you can be for yourself, the better you can show up for yourself. Then you won't be making these unrealistic goals and setting yourself up to feel the failure or the guilt of, not completing something. I like to visualize and meditate. I mean, I don't do it a lot anymore. I visualize all the time, but meditation, I used to do it like with music, sitting, sometimes get a comfy, blanket, but always sitting up, never laying down, because I would fall asleep. I'll put myself right the fuck to sleep. I don't know if anybody else has that problem, but I had to find a comfy chair to sit up in, because otherwise I could fall asleep. Yeah. Visualizing your desires for the year ahead. I think that's, that's part of the planning.
Board, a fun calendar that you can mark things on. Something pretty that you can make, where you can add stuff to. That I had a vision of that as you were talking about, like a planning thing, like making something like that, like a big calendar. Nobody does that anymore, but if you had the space for it somewhere, and just think of the things that you could add to it, and you sort of plan out your year. And I saw maybe an Instagram ad or something where it's this big ass wall calendar, and so it's like all the weeks, weekends, the months, everything. She had it. It's a big
I don't want to say it's a graph, but it looks like a graph, I guess. And she was showing how she fills everything in, like each weekend, and where there's family events and there's holidays, and so she kind of gets to see where there's days that there aren't anything going on, and then she plans for that. And I was like, wow. But it's big. I mean, it's like the size of a large screen TV, large flat screen TV. Yeah, but it's all in one place. So each block probably has like a little less than a whole hand.
Yeah.
Like as a square.
That's nice.
It's pretty large.
It's not like a little tiny space.
It's not tiny, no.
You can do a lot of stuff there.
And I'm guessing it just goes on a wall and you write on it with like dry erase marker. I don't know.
I like the idea of decorating it though. You can put little stickers and things on there. And just sticky notes or mantras or whatever. Just all kinds of stuff. That would be fun.
I think I was going to say calendaring in, but I'm not sure that's quite a word.
Penciling in on your calendar.
Yeah, putting it in on your calendar. Making time for the shadow work through different seasons. For me, I already know my cycle through the year. Like I have a couple of significant death dates. Those fall in times when I should be happy and productive and doing stuff. And yet I know for that week, I need downtime this week. It's like, nope, don't plan anything big during this. I know emotionally I'll be drained. I know emotionally I'll need to really stick to myself. Yeah, withdraw, kind of, just sit with myself still to process that every year. So I like that. For me, I actually can work in some of my time when I know I'm going to do shadow work, because I know things are going to come up during those times when I've lost people. Yeah. So the other thing we can do is prepare for growth in spring. If you don't know what to do with your 3 months, start looking forward to March 20th through 22nd. That's the beginning of spring. And think about, all right, from March, what do I want to do? This is where I think so we go from like the beginning of the new year where they're going, oh, get a gym membership, do this, do that. And then in March, it's like, get bikini ready.
That's it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Get
every
bikini
time.
Ready. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can start planning for goals that you might want to start in March, before the summer hits. I know for us, January and February are pretty cold months. March, we can get some really cold days. Sometimes, sometimes they're warm.
It's just getting warmer. The sun's I remember coming here in March and getting a sunburn.
Yeah, but you're from Kansas City, so
I was.
Back then, yeah, you had Kansas City white skin, so you didn't even have your Florida base tan yet.
That is some white skin right there. That's like all winter long, never seeing the sun.
That's paper white butt. Yes, very. So I'm not surprised that you got burnt, but for us who live here, March is not the time you can get a tan.
I took the kids to the pool. I think
you
lived in, I think it was
in Lakewood Ranch.
You lived, I think when you lived in the apartment in Lakewood Ranch, and I took all the boys to the pool, and I stayed out there for just a couple of hours, and I got sunburned.
You got burnt. Oh,
I did.
I'm so sorry.
Me too, because I was not expecting that. But the sun is getting closer to us. The sun has started moving back from
across the sky.
Yeah, across the sky, so it's getting closer. So it's getting stronger, but it's still cold in a lot of places, including it can be cold in Florida.
Yeah. One thing I didn't mention, when we did our Yule podcast not long ago, is with the solstices, it's really interesting to take a picture on that day at noon where your shadow is, any kind of shadow that you can get, because your shadow will be so long. Like, we're going to do that. We're going to stand in your driveway or something. And that way, then when the summer solstice comes and the sun is like almost directly above us, because we're pretty close to the equator, our shadow is so tiny. It's only like 4 inches long. It's right, like we're standing on our shadow rather than having this long shadow.
Okay, that's how the sundials worked, isn't it?
Kind of, yeah.
Sundials work like that?
Yeah, they work with the shadow to grow longer and shorter. Yep. Yeah. It's, I don't know. That's seeing it. You can really see it when you're like, here's a picture of me when it's the winter solstice and winter is starting, and then here's me when it's
so often we don't
summer.
We don't see these things because it's all happening above us, and
it's slow,
and it's a slow transition.
It is.
We're busy with our lives, and we're just like,
I know.
We're not paying attention.
You have that one saying that I think is so funny where it's contemplating the fuzz in your navel, right? I love that saying. It's so fucking funny. So if I was to tell people that I watch the sun move through the sky, That's what they would be hearing. So you stare at fuzz in your belly button all day, like, what the it's so slow. What do you mean? How can you just, nothing is really happening with it. You know, people know the sun rises and sets, but they don't actually take stock of the shadow that moves across it, because we're not really in places where, you know, the sun is blaring through our window and then it's not. Because it moves pretty quickly. Like, if you have a small window, you can watch that shadow move pretty fast. So we got off track, of course.
We did. So preparing for the growth in spring.
Yeah.
Planting seeds of intention. Like, instead of rushing into action, use the winter to brainstorm and outline your dreams. Craft a vision board. Write down clear, actionable goals you'll review as the energy of spring supports momentum.
That's what I like. So you do this brainstorming, you create some plans, then a month goes by, then you look at it again, you're like, do I really want that for myself in March? You have time to shift the plans and refine them to make them really good.
And if you're into tarot, I think that for us, was it late January, early February?
Yeah, late January, early February.
Perfect time to do a year ahead spread instead of on January 1. So that's something we've been doing for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
That year ahead spread. But not January 1st, because I think we did it one year and we just found everything was really off.
It was really, we did it like January 4th or 7th, that first week. And then every single one of us, we walked away like, okay, yeah, thanks, that was good, great, bye. And a couple weeks later, one of us finally spoke up and said, hey, I really didn't, like, it really wasn't that great for me. Would you consider, like, would you want to redo it? And then all of us spoke up. We're like, I didn't feel mine either, really. And why we weren't just honest right when it was all going on. Maybe we needed that little bit of time to happen.
Reflect. We needed some time to think back on those cards that we got.
Is this really the direction?
Yeah.
But also I feel when we do it a little later in the calendar year, you know, that I like to see if the first card that represents January really represented January. It's almost like you get that first card to say, here's how your January went. And then you're like, yep, the rest of the cards got to be right then. You know, having faith in that. Yeah. So the slow planning part is what I like of, you know, waiting.
Taking advantage of the winter. Taking advantage of this downtime. The Earth's resting period, so we can rest too, and just slowing things down.
Breaking it into manageable chunks. When you set your goals, like, break it into manageable chunks. You know, also like smaller steps. So instead of having one huge goal, you really have like 10 small goals, and each one precedes the other one. So I like it that way. And then, of course, go ahead. No, I know. I want you to say it.
Working with sky cycles.
And oldie but goodie, we're always working with the sky cycles, whether it's the lunar calendar, whether it's the solar calendar, the zodiac. Aligning yourself with what's going on in the sky can really help give you direction. If you don't know what you should work on, if you don't have the questions in your head, if you're not trying to solve any big problem, look to the sky to ask the questions for it.
And
what are the influences?
You can think of the sky as, when you hear the phrase as above, so below, it's talking about the sky and us, sky and earth. And you can think of the sky as a cosmic mirror, because it really is a reflection of what's going on down here in in time on Earth, what's happening up in the sky.
Yeah.
I'm starting to study astrology, which I plan to eventually teach a class on.
Love that.
And so when I read that the sky is like a cosmic mirror, and I was like, wow, that's really a trip. I never thought of it like that. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the sky that you can align with, that you can do your rituals around, releasing rituals with moons, or harnessing a moon energy that aligns with your long-term vision, or zodiac energy. You can even spend winter learning more about this. I think the winter is a good time for learning, because
you're indoors.
Because you're indoors, and you have more time, because you're not like on the go. As soon as it starts getting light out, or lighter and warmer, I feel like we're all ready to get outside. Yeah, you know,
definitely.
I mean, that's what I've always seen. I don't know if anybody doesn't feel that way, but
well, and as it gets warmer, you know, there's people start having more activities, so you're invited to more things. You have things on the weekend, and there's more parties. Then you've got summer coming up, and now everybody's like, every weekend needs to be fun and partying because it's the summer. You know, and taking advantage of that.
Yeah, kids are out of school. We don't have kids anymore, but I remember when the kids were out of school. You know, you were planning stuff because the kids didn't have school for 3 months.
Yeah. You're like, oh, what am I going to do with these little shits to keep them busy?
Keep them busy and out of trouble. So what we want to do is work with nature, not against it.
Definitely. Yeah. Aligning with that seasonal energy, it's just like the nature, it's thriving in cycles. So I want you to list out what your own cycles look like. That's why we asked in the beginning, when do you feel energized? When do you feel tired? Like, when do you need to rest? Winter is for rest, spring is for growth, summer's for flourishing, and fall is for harvesting. Like, does that align with how you work through your year? It may or may not, but this is where I tend to fall into what's my goals over the next 3 months, So now I'm in that rest period, and by resting, I'm planning. But it's a rest because I'm still indoors. I'm not moving a lot. I'm not physically creating anything. And then spring is for growth. This is where all the planting comes in, and now you're getting out, and all the creatures are getting out. Summer's for flourishing. Fuck yeah. Planning trips, going to the beach all the time, being in the pool. We have a very steady routine in summer, and that is we get up, we walk the garden in the morning, we both go to work. This is me and my husband. I wish it was me and my mom. Not instead of, but just also. And then he comes home, and it's like, it is 4:30 and we are ready to get in the fucking pool because it is a hot day. And it's like, yes, relaxing in the pool, and we'll probably stay there till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock maybe. And that could be any day of the week. We just know that pool time is all the time. Yes. Sometimes Kat will come over for lunch. She'll be like, I'm coming to the pool for an hour. Mm-hmm. And that's very nice. Yeah. So that's the flourishing. Mm-hmm. And then fall for harvesting. Again, looking back over what you've done with the year, what you've learned, what went well, what didn't.
When we say harvesting, we're not talking about like going out into the fields because we don't do that anymore. We're talking about taking stock.
Yeah, taking stock.
Taking stock in what you've done, where you are in your year, what you've achieved. Maybe some places where you didn't quite reach, do that thing that you thought that you wanted to do, and as you put that on a shelf and wait for the winter to revisit it, maybe is that something that you really want to commit yourself to in the next year? You don't have to think about it then, but kind of taking stock of where you are is the way to think of fall in terms of a harvest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To practice honoring the seasons, you just create these small rituals, but for winter, it's really about that stillness. I mean, depending on where you live, like I said, living in Florida, things are not still here. This is our season. There's actually a lot of visitors here because everybody is traveling from cold states to the warm state.
Everybody takes a vacation to Florida in the winter, it seems.
Yeah, so you got to find what really aligns with you. And I know for honoring the stillness of winter, lighting candles, having certain teas that align with the season, that it's the warming season. You want to keep warm during this time. So that's why cinnamon is such a big deal. Baking and stews and these warm comfort foods. Spending time in quiet contemplation, making more time to just say, instead of TV tonight, I'm going to go sit with a book and learn something or journal something or write something down. Start recording the story of your life, What if you could write a book about all your experiences during one winter season? Just get them all out. So I would say celebrating in small symbolic steps like cleaning up your spaces and organizing areas. It's a way to prepare for that renewal of spring. That's kind of what you're thinking. Imagine you are preparing for the goddess of spring to show up at your place. What are you going to do to make it ready and available for her? I think that there's magic within manifesting with the seasons when you're in sync also, because you're reflecting what the earth is going through. So when we are thinking of crystals and candles and all the things that we use as tool to kind of enhance our practices, imagine connecting with the whole the hemisphere that we're in, right? Or the country or the area that you're in. The whole fucking thing is going through the same thing. So this is a powerful tool that you can kind of absorb of all the land around you is going through the exact same thing. So setting intentions to build that inner strength and preparing to manifest in the active seasons, like drawing in the power of that quiet, dormant energy so that when spring is ready to bust through with life, it's like you've gathered it all up. It's stored within you. Yeah.
You can do this with tarot, spell work, focus on clarity and visions to guide your clarity and vision to guide your journey. When we slow down and embrace winter as a time for inner work and preparation, we set ourselves up for more action-oriented seasons ahead. By working with nature's cycle, instead of forcing against them, we can create lasting change that feels aligned with our true selves.
Yeah, New Year's resolutions, remember, they're failing because they're misaligned with the psychology of us and like the energy of winter. There's power in the natural rhythms of life around us, okay? Use winter to reflect and rest and set meaningful intentions so that you are ready to take action when spring arrives. That's what you're using for it. It's not like you're doing nothing, you're just preparing. That takes work too. That takes more mental work.
Energy.
Yeah, that takes mental work energy rather than physically out, doing jobs. By working with nature's cycles instead of forcing against them, like Kat said, we can create lasting change that truly does feel aligned with our real selves, like our higher selves, because we're paying attention to the subtle differences that are shifting around us. It's a quick one to remind you that spending your time starting new shit January 1 is not the most effective thing in a witch's life, and to wait until spring to really get those things going, but honoring the winter season, not with action, but with rest and reflection. Yeah.
So, and that wraps up this podcast.
Yeah.
Until next time.
All right. We love you, witches. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time. Bye.